You know, throughout my lifetime, I found there to be quite a few messed up things on this planet, like the discovery of milk, mating patterns of the black widow spider, and fish people. Oh, and the Flemoid Encounter. The Flemoid Encounter is a mod for Serious Sam like nothing I've ever seen before. Created by user Sly7745, this particular mod is based on the game found in a freaking cereal box, namely Chex Quest. Originally a Doom total conversion mod, Chex Quest follows the adventures of a Chex warrior on the planet of Bazoik. He uses a weapon named the Zorcha, which isn't a violent weapon at all, as it teleports the enemies away instead of killing them. However, this sort of information isn't given to you during the mod's levels. That being said, the mod by Sly copies the style of the enemies, the locations, and the music right from the game in the form of rip music and custom-made geometry and enemy models. Considering this is his first campaign release, it's a good effort given the task. That's not to say it doesn't have its share of issues as well as saving graces. Flemoid Encounter has a total of 4 levels covering 3 areas: the landing zone, storage areas, and the caverns of Bazoik. This is much like the original game where these zones appear. However, the laboratory and the arboretum from the original Chex Quest does not make an appearance in the mod's levels. Luckily, the levels are long and jam-packed with secrets for those with a keen eye, and there's plenty of combat. Being long is always good, as long as the gameplay is mixed up somewhat, or the areas varied. However, that's not the case with Flemoid Encounter, with large areas and long corridors with little detail making up a majority of the mod's playtime. The caverns in particular can be lacking in detail, whilst the landing zone areas have plenty of detail and attention to detail in general. Texture-wise, Sly has chosen to try and stay with the same style of buildings and walls that the original Chex Quest used, without resorting to too low of a texture resolution. This comes off quite nicely and gives the mod its own kind of charm, as well as making sure that it stays true to the original mod's work. Custom models such as Check Warrior ships can be found throughout the level, and buildings made from the ground up with separate rooms are also quite apparent. Fascinatingly enough, these rooms look lived in, and Sly has made each room have its own particular use, adopting the classic Doom style of finding each room and taking any ammo and pressing any buttons you find. It gives a bit of a nostalgic feel, as hugging walls to find secrets also makes a return, like the classic Wolfenstein games with an obvious modern flair. The caverns are a big issue in comparison to the landing zone areas, with repeating textures for endless amounts of time, dark corridors, and lackluster geometry and design. Many times during my playthrough I was turned around and found myself backtracking for no reason, despite following a certain path or having a teleport send me miles back from where I needed to be, with no clear indication of which way I should be going. The caverns lack any way to tell if you've been by this certain place or not, except for item drops that you may have already picked up, which are quite well listed around. These levels are screaming for items like stalactites or stalagmites, and just sort of cavey feels. The final level, however, has some parts which fix this with some nice windy paths over death pits and a bit of parkour, but the length of the level makes these few and far between. There are some pools of slime, which could be animated to look a little less stagnant, but that seems to be a bit nitpicky. The finale level has some nice standout locations like a slime waterfall and some very fascinating secrets that reference popular pop culture, which is kind of nice and breaks the fourth wall, but it's, these sort of things that keep it interesting and let you explore a little bit more, and I appreciate that. The flashlight is heavily used in cavern areas to emulate the idea of being in space or in caves, depending on the location. Whilst fun at first, it can get very draining to be used over time, with some players feeling eye strain from it after long periods. Unfortunately, when the flashlight is not being used due to, walking outside, the level's lights do not seem to become brighter to compensate for this, and it's still considerably more dark than it has any right to be. Although neat at first, it got relatively annoying later on. A nice idea that's not executed as well as some of the others. Sound-wise, well, it works great. The classical style of music mixes in well with the atmosphere, despite the modern style of textures used. The Flemoids sound particularly nice with their own sounds, and the guns give the right amount of oomph to their There's nothing amazing, there's nothing wrong either, it just fits and does the job. Atmospheric sounds would have been a great addition to some of the locations, and that just may have been an oversight. Flemoid Encounter is a strange but enjoyable Trek 4 level campaign through a reimagined Chex Quest.